All right, everyone should see the Canvas page. Good. I want to go over kind of what we're going to cover in the first part of class, first part of the class, not this class, first part of the course. So here's kind of the way we're going to do things for the next little bit. The beginning part, we're going to cover some C# stuff. Okay, so I want to get you guys exposed to C#, not necessarily because I want or expect you to create your project in C#, but I want to, part of the goal for this course is to expose you guys to different languages so that if you are ever in a situation where you need to use it or want to use it, you've seen it before. Also, there's always a little bit of fear associated with learning something new, especially with new languages, and all of you have seen Java. And so I want to kind of remove a little bit of that fear once you see how similar the two languages are. And so if you look on Canvas and you see the first two topics, you'll see that these are both C# concepts. We're not going to go through these together. I don't think that would be a good use of anybody's time. These are more resources for you to kind of browse through on your own, so that you can kind of get an idea of C#. Okay, so these are C# classes, C# input output methods in C#, collections, forms, and that sort of thing. So if you want to see how to do those things, these are slides created for you to check that out. So starting project in Visual Studio, all that sort of stuff. Side note, as far as what IDE you use, I don't care. We're not going to use a specific one for this course. In fact, I don't know that we might hop between a couple different ones. For Java, there are a ton. So you can use Eclipse, you can use BlueJ. I'm not going to list them up. You use whatever one you want. Any of that is fine. For C#, Visual Studio's, I think, the only one you can use. Can you use C# and other IDEs? I've never tried. If any of you know, say something or type something. Anybody use C# and anything other than Visual Studio? Okay, nobody knows. We'll use it in Visual Studio. So again, part of my goal for this course is to expose you to C#, but again, you don't have to necessarily create your program in C#. Traditionally, about half of the class, maybe not quite half, will do their project using some sort of graphical user interface. Again, that's not required, but it does make things easier in certain aspects. And so looking up Windows Forms, or I know there's a Java package for doing this as well. I don't know what it is off the top of my head. You guys might know, for creating GUI applications. You're welcome to use that as well. Questions so far? Okay, so all that to say, we're not going to cover this stuff in class because a lot of it's a review, but I did want to provide it as a resource for you guys to kind of digest on your own. We will today be going over the code and the file structure for that MealMaker program that we looked at last class. The reason for this is twofold. One, we're going to look in depth at the code, and this will take a few class periods. I want to do this because one, we're going to take a look at C#. Two, we're going to get an idea of how applications get put together. And 3, we're going to use this Mealmaker program as the basis, as a basis example for a lot of the UML diagrams that we cover in the future. So you being familiar with this application, how it works and how the parts interact and work together is going to be important for you understanding how the documents need to be applied to the program that you're creating, if that makes sense. If I use a program as an example and you're not familiar with the program, the example's kind of worthless. So this will also give you guys an opportunity to look at the code that I wrote and ask questions and criticize it and tell me all the things that I did wrong. Okay. Is that good with you? How many of you were taught to put the curly braces on the same line? How many of you were taught to put the curly braces on the line below? Wow. There are a lot of you that do it wrong. Only one, Santiago. Oh, wait, Sophia, you're good. Only Miranda. Oh. Same line brackets are weird. You're weird. You can't, this is dumb. We, as a society, we have allowed the thumbs up and thumbs down of literally everything, but I can't thumbs down your quotes, like your messages in chat. I should be able to thumbs down them. Maybe that would hurt your feelings. Civil War. You only have Civil War when, well, never mind. Anyways, let's take a look at this. Now, full disclosure, this is the project in Unity. This is not a course in Unity. Totally understand that. I'm not expecting you to learn Unity. This is simply the application that I chose to create this program. And so I'm not going to cover Unity specific stuff unless you just have questions. But this is where this is created. You can, the code, the backend for this that deals with, all the file input output is all C#. And so it could be applied to any other application. You could create this directly in Visual Studio using Windows Forms. I just have a lot of experience with Unity, so it was easier for me to create this. And when I created it, I didn't intend anybody to ever look at it. I just created it for my wife. And when I created this, I wasn't teaching this course, and so I thought no one would ever look at the code. So in fact, I haven't looked at this code in like 2 years. So don't blame me if something is really bad, but this will be good because you'll get to see actual code in a functioning program where the code was written with no one ever seeing it in mind. So we'll take a look at all of the rules that I broke that you were told not to do, and that sort of thing. Questions before we get started? Is everybody awake? Nobody has said anything this morning. I'm starting to think I've been on mute this whole time.
Are you going to require us to use Visual Studio Code, or is NetBeans fine?
Are you coding in Java?
Yes.
You use whatever you want.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Yeah, I've got coffee too. Can you see this? That was a little weird. Sorry. You haven't eaten? What time did you get up? I remember what it's like to be in college. I got you. 15 minutes ago, you got up. Holy cow. My kids don't sleep in, so that means my wife and I don't sleep in. You've been cleating since 7? That's pretty early. Okay. Oof. Yes, I agree. All right, well, let's get started. So part of, hold on. Gotcha. All right, so let's jump into this. So part of, let me ask you this, how many of you have taken 3153? Nope, that's the wrong course. 3155, software engineering. How many of you taken that? Raise your hand or say something. Gotcha. Did you learn design patterns in that course? Please don't say what's a design pattern. How many of you were thinking that? How many of you know what a design pattern is? If I say, could you give me a rough definition of a design pattern? Who could do it? Can anyone? I will give you, there's the, yet another reason we need a thumbs down. Nobody? I'll give you 50 points on your midterm if you can give me a semi-accurate definition of a design pattern. Nobody. Okay. Crap. Ethan, that's okay. Hold on. Miranda, that's copy and paste. I'm not even reading that. Stone, and side note, that is a really cool name. All right, so I guess we need to talk about design patterns. Yeah. Is that your given name? That is so awesome. Yeah, you all copied the same Google result. The problem is that Google definition, while accurate, doesn't do a good job of describing what they are. Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that, Stone. Hopefully that goes away as you get older. So let's talk about a design pattern. A design pattern is a generally reusable, I'm just kidding. A design pattern is basically this. Yeah, that's another good copy paste definition. Essentially here, a design pattern is a way that it's a particular technique for coding that you implement to solve problems. And I know that's super generic. The best way to explain these is by looking at examples. And so we will take a look at a couple of design patterns. Yeah. We'll take a look at a couple of design patterns this semester. One of them is the singleton design pattern. And these are important because they are a used thing, as opposed to some of the things that you and I were taught that we learned and then never saw or needed again for the rest of our lives. Design patterns are used frequently. I use them all the time in game development. It's like a particular style, like, okay, I need to implement this system. I'm going to use this design pattern. The first one that we'll look at will be the singleton design pattern. I don't know if we'll get into it today, but that was kind of a side note. We will, yeah, it's kind of like a blueprint for doing something. So let's take a look at the coding for this project. So this is the Meal Maker program. And you can see here is the project view. This has all of the scripts in it. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 different scripts, 12 different classes in this program. Okay. And I'm going to run it. And we looked at this last class. And so we have an idea of how it works. Is anybody not here on Tuesday? Okay, so let me run through this real quick again. All right, well, nice to meet all of you. If this is your first time being here. The idea with this program is I created it for my wife to help facilitate the meal prep or the meal planning process. And it basically will allow you to input all kind of different meals and side items, and it will generate random meals and take the meals that you have input and spread them out across a calendar for you. So it kind of takes the thinking out of, okay, what do we want to have this week type thing. So let's look first at the meal menu. And so the way this works is this allows us to enter meals. So these are the meals that we eat. And this is the developed version. This is not the version that she uses. And so all of I just added some to get started. But these are the meals that we eat. So if you're a user using this program, you would go through and add all of the meals that you eat. So somebody give me a meal that they eat. Person has the coolest corned beef.
Chicken and rice.
What? Okay, we'll do chicken and rice, but Miranda, what is corned beef? What is that?
I'm offended you asked. So it's an Irish dish that is typically made for like St. Patty's Day.
Okay.
It's so good. So good. Try it out.
Corned sounds like a verb. How do you corn something?
I have no idea. I just know you take like a brisket of corned beef, like it's an actual like type of meat that you buy.
Okay.
You take a brisket, put it in a slow cooker with some cabbage and carrots and other stuff, and then you cook it for like all day. And then at the end of the day, it's like the most amazing dish I've ever had in my life. So try it. It's delicious.
Do you like hit the brisket with the corn to corn it? Like, how does that work?
It's not, there's no corn in it, actually. I don't know. I've never researched it.
Sounds like a misnomer.
I just come home, my mom has it ready, and I'm like, yay.
Okay, so Jacob knows how to Google salt cured brisket of beef. Okay, so I know what brisket is. The term comes from the treatment of the meat with large grained rock salt, also called corns of salt. Look at that. Now we all learned something. That, ladies and gentlemen, will be on your test. You need to know the history of corned beef. So, got it. That's interesting. Okay, so we're going to add a meal. So when we go to add a meal, we enter the main dish here, and then we put the number of sides, and then we select the sides. Now, Miranda, can you tell us what it is that you eat? Is there a side dish with corned beef?
So corned beef is usually cooked in a slow cooker with like the side items. So like you'll be cooking it with like celery, like little slices of celery, carrots, cabbage is like the biggest thing. Like everyone always says corned beef and cabbage.
So would you classify the cabbage as a part of the corned beef? So if you're making corned beef, do you just
Mhm.
automatically assume, okay, I need cabbage?
Yes. Well, it's a side. I would say it's a side because some people don't like cabbage and they don't
Okay.
like I've had corned beef without it before. So
Okay, so I'm gonna go back to the main menu and we're actually gonna go to side item and we're gonna add cabbage as a side item, okay? So now cabbage is something that we can add to any meal. What are some other side items while we're here? So take a look at the list. We've got baked beans, cabbage, couscous, French fries, garlic bread, green beans, mac and cheese, mashed potatoes, potato chips, rice, roasted broccoli, cauliflower, rolls, salad, and sweet potatoes. Cornbread. Okay, so I'll add cornbread. What are some other sides? What? Willie, I don't know what that is. Is that a typo or is that a food? You'll have to explain. Creamed spinach. Raised asparagus. Thumbs down to that. All right, so we'll go with this. All right, so now that we've added side items, I'm going to go back to the main menu and we'll go and add a new meal. So here we'll go corned beef. And then Miranda, can you tell us is typically how many sides do you have with corned beef? Is it just the one or should we put two and select?
every family is different, but in my family, we always just used whatever was in the pot. So like carrots, celery, and like mixed cooked vegetables like that. But one side is what I would say.
All right, so one side and either cabbage or carrots, would you say?
Yeah, well, we would do like everything together, but yeah, just cabbage then, I would say.
Okay, so we'll do one side cabbage. And do you have this often?
My mom, we used to only make it for St. Patrick's Day until I fell in love with it. And my mom started making it like once every couple months because it has a lot of work. You have to do a lot of work for it, but so
Got it.
not
All right, so
too often.
All right, so we'll do 6. Stone, is there a way to see your screen as well? I can't see the screen you're typing on except for, can y'all see the screen?
Yes.
Yeah, I can see.
Okay. Okay. All right, so we'll hit accept. So now you see we have corned beef added with one side. There's one side option and we got a frequency of 6. Let's do one more. Somebody give me one more. Give me one more meal. Chicken and rice, that's right. So we'll say chicken and we'll add rice as a side. What else do we want to have? So chicken, rice, and something else. We'll do teriyaki sauce. So that would be like, we would in that case say teriyaki chicken with rice. Because you put the main dish up here and then you put the sides down here with chips. Where's chips? Chips. I don't see chips. We had chips. Oh, potato chips. Corn and spinach. Okay. And so all of these would be, rolls would be a good size too. Rolls are always a good size. So essentially what we have here, we have 6 options, but we want to have 2 sides. So we'll make teriyaki chicken and it'll have 2 sides with it, but it will select from this list of available options 2 of these. Okay. And we'll leave the frequency as 5. and then I'm going to hit accept. Okay, so here we see that added. Where are we? So you have teriyaki chicken and 2 sides, 6 side options, and a frequency of 5. Okay, so now we'll go back to the main menu. So we did the side items menu. This allows us to add side items. We did the meal menu. This allows us to add meals. And now we're going to go to the meal calendar. And with this meal calendar, we don't have numbers on it as far as getting super specific, like specifying months and that sort of thing, because it's not that serious. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times 5. So this actually would give us 35 days of meals. And so the idea is that you can just match it up to wherever you are in the month. So Stone, yes, the idea is that you would be submitting a project like this at the end of the semester. I will say that this is probably a little bit more than what you would need to do with all the GUI stuff, but this is the idea. This took me about 6 hours to do. Obviously, I've got a little bit more experience than you guys do, but in terms of scope, this is a good idea for what you would expect to do. Again, you don't have to do graphic user interface. It can be all text-based. But another reason I wanted to show this to you guys was to give you a better idea of what it is that you need to turn in terms of a project. Okay. So let's take a look at this. This automatically generated a calendar, and there's some AI involved that takes the frequency of the meal and applies it. So the higher the frequency, the more likely it is to show up. The lower the frequency, the less likely it is to show up. Okay. We also have the special events, which is, it will allow us to force a particular thing for a particular night. So in our family, movie night's Monday, game night's Friday, and we have leftovers on Saturday. And so we don't need meals for that night. So if your particular setup, you don't need a meal for a particular night because you always go to your parents' house or your friend's house, or you steal your neighbor's dinner on Tuesdays, then you just put that there and it'll automatically fill in and not do that. So again, this is kind of what I meant by what I have here is a little bit beyond the scope of what I would be looking for you guys to do. You wouldn't need to do something like this. Just like a basic calendar would be fine. But that's why you see movie nights all on Monday, game nights Friday, Saturdays leftovers. So does the A automatically rearrange things? Yes, it does. Why only soup on some Tuesdays? So you're saying, why did it only generate soup on Tuesdays?
I meant like, why would you do that as a meal? Just soup?
Apparently you have never had soup that when my wife makes. It's all you want to eat. And it goes with bread. And so that's just yeah. It's
I just never had it as a meal. Just like with a meal or as an appetizer.
no, it's because she'll make that and then it automatically includes bread. So she'll make a big loaf of bread from scratch, and it's making me hungry just talking about it.
Get lentil soup. You're welcome.
Yeah, they're like some heartier soups, like more stuff in it. Like
Yeah, so potato soup is thick, and tomato soup, like we have a massive garden, and we get them from there, and it's really good.
So are the soups more like stew? Like,
the
does it have
potato
meat?
soup is, the tomato soup's not, but it's you eat a lot of it, and it's a gigantic pot.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we've heard before that soup is not necessarily generally considered a meal, but it is at our house, I guess. Yes, so if we take a look at this, so this is the way the calendar works. And again, this would be fine for the scope of what your project is. I added some additional features to make it more user-friendly and usable because this program was actually designed to be used, not to turn into a project for a course. So because the sides are selected randomly and so for example, we have teriyaki chicken right here. We specified some sides that wouldn't necessarily go well together. Like you wouldn't have potato chips and rolls, or you wouldn't have like garlic bread and rolls. You would want some sort of a balance. And so like here, like sweet potatoes and French fries, those are 2 potatoes. So you wouldn't want this. And so in this situation, when you looked at this, again, sweet potatoes and potato chips, we wouldn't want the same thing here. We probably also wouldn't want sweet potatoes back to back. And so I've got it set up to where you can click on the actual item and then click either generate new meal or generate new sides. And so having sloppy joes on Wednesday here is fine, but we don't want sweet potatoes and French fries. So I'm going to click generate new sides, and we can do mac and cheese and French fries. We do French fries and mac and cheese. It looks like those are the only options. So we'll do French fries and mac and cheese. And then for here, it loves French fries. I think it's probably because there's only a couple different options for slop. It's probably sweet potatoes, French fries, mac and cheese. So that's probably what it is there. For burgers, we can do sweet potatoes and potato chips because now we aren't the same here. Okay, so that feature just allows you to make minor tweaks to it. Like here, because this is random, even though it factors in the frequency, you get sometimes you get 2 meals in the same week. Okay. Yes, I record every lecture. Why are you going to go to sleep? There was all this talk of food made you hungry and you're leaving class to go get food. Yeah. So what we would do here is I would click on one of these and click generate new meal, and then we would get a new meal, and it can continue to just generate them here. So we could do corned beef and cabbage. We'll leave it like that. So that's essentially the way this works. I don't know what save calendar does. I don't know what this feature does. Let me click on it. Oh, calendar successfully saved to saved calendars. How does that work? Oh, it takes a screenshot of it. That's pretty cool. I clearly don't remember coding this. Okay. And that's it. If you want a whole new calendar, you can just click this and it'll generate a whole new calendar. So that is the program. That's how it functions. That's how it works. And if we start it back up, the meals that we created are still here. So it saves them in between sessions, and we'll take a look at how to handle that in your programs. Okay. Questions so far? I feel like I'm talking way too much. Nobody has any questions on anything. Okay. I don't know. So yes, you'll need to make a UML diagram for this, but we haven't gone over UML diagrams. You're not going to need to make one for this program. You'll need to make one for your program. I will show you how to do UML diagrams using this program as a basis. So our final project have to save any data if restarted. So Thomas, it depends on what your final project does. Most of these applications that you guys are creating are going to need to have some sort of user input that gets saved and then loaded back into the program when it starts up. And that is one thing we will look at how to do. And in fact, if you go back to here, file input output. That should be covered in there. Let me actually look. I didn't create these PowerPoints. So yeah, the text files is what you're going to want to use. You're going to write to a text file, and then yeah, so this you're going to write to a text file and read to a text file. That's what it is that you're going to want to check out how to do. Yep. So this is exactly what you want to look at. Okay. Is AI difficult to code? It's just like anything else. Are we also diving into the source code for this? Yes, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to look at the source code for this project. And again, this is written in C#, and we will take a look at the file input output system. I want to show you everything as a way of kind of teaching you guys how this is set up and how you can set up your projects as well. Again, you don't need to use Unity. You don't need to make it this complicated. But for what it's worth. In fact, I can post this to Canvas so you can at least look at the scripts, because I think a lot of this code you can use. That brings me to a point. I don't remember if I covered this last class. It's kind of a blur. The first week of classes are always like that, but if I've said this before, well, we have enough new people here, I'll say it again. My policy for using code that you find online is this. I don't mind if you use the internet to find code for how to do something. Excuse me. It's part of programming. I still go online to look for code. Here is the caveat, though. Here's the caveat. Any code that you find online that you end up using in your application, you need to understand that code well enough to explain line by line what is happening. Okay. The purpose of looking up code is not to create layers of abstraction in your own application. And by that, I mean, it is not okay to find code online, copy and paste it in your program, but not really know what that code is doing or how it's working. Okay, it's like, I need to do XYZ, or I need to do, we'll do something super simple. Like I need to randomize this array. Okay, and I need to find a method online to do it. Okay, this is a common thing, something along the lines of this, and this is how I use it. So I think to myself, okay, I need to randomize this array, and it's generally more complex than that. I'm using a simple example. It's like I could sit here and I could figure out how to do it, and it would probably take me a couple hours to figure out this particular problem, or I could just go online and see if there's a pre-made solution for it. I go online and I look and I find this code or this algorithm in pseudocode that outlines how to do this. And this is the Bob Jones algorithm for randomizing array. And I look at the code and I kind of follow through it. And I'm reading it and I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Yes. Okay. I understand how it's working. It's going each one at a time and putting it at a random place. And once that one is set, it doesn't move again. I understand how that works. Okay. I'm going to copy and paste it into my project and I'm good. That situation is okay. That says I found code that's freely available online. I understand what each line of code does. I understand the algorithm. I could explain it to somebody. That's totally fine. Okay. What's not okay is to run into a brick wall and say, okay, I can't figure out how to do file input output. But I found these 3 classes available online. I'm looking at the code and I don't really understand what it does. But if I copy and paste it into my project, now all of a sudden it works. That situation is not okay. Are there any questions on those two scenarios and what is okay in your situation and what is not. Okay, so I'm going to assume that we're all on the same page. Okay, so essentially, yes, I'm okay with that. Now, this is not a universally applied policy across all of your classes. So don't take my policy and try to apply it in another class and say, but I can do this in this class. Different instructors are going to have different views on what is acceptable in terms of coding. This is my policy. Okay,
Hey, professor, I have a question.
sure.
What's your thoughts about like Chat GPT?
I don't look at it any different than Google or sources on the internet. Meaning the policy that I just stated would apply to that as well. And so if you say, hey, can you write a program that randomizes an array? And it does, and you look at that code and you're like, okay, I understand how that works. I understand what it's doing. That's a cool way to do it. Copy paste. I'm fine. I'm okay with that. And the reason I'm okay with that is because that's what I have done professionally for 20 years. That's partly how you learn. You see a working example of something that is freely available. It's not like you snuck in and hacked into somebody's program and you're stealing code that they don't want you to see. As long as you're learning from it, that's fine. Now, again, like I mentioned before, that same principle doesn't apply to other areas or other classes. If you're in an English class and you have to write an essay, you can't do that. Coding is different. You know, if you work for a newspaper and they're like, hey, write this article about this topic, and you go online and you find an article that's written already and you copy and paste that, it's like, here you go, you're going to get fired. In programming, if they say, hey, write a program that does this, and you go find a program that does something similar with code posted online, and you take that code and you put it in your project and you understand how it works and you tie it into the specific example that your boss asked you to do, and you turn that in, you get promoted. And so you have to understand that the fields and the industries are different, and the sharing of source code versus the sharing of writing and other user created materials is different from field to field. And there's different levels of propriety depending on the industry that you're in. So just, yeah, I don't know if that answered your question.
I mean, yeah, I agree. It's kind of cool though. It like teaches you, it can teach you how to actually like how to do it. Not even just like give you the code, they can like explain the code and teach you what's happening with the code.
Yeah, it's a tool just like anything else, and how you use it matters. If you use it with your brain shut off as a, you know, blind copy paste, you're not learning anything. So it's totally up to you. Other questions on this?
So how do I exactly prove that like I understand it? Are we supposed to just like take notes in it, or just
So
send you like a document?
No, I don't need a document. It's one of those situations where it's kind of a risk that you take. If you're going to, yeah, and you can comment it. That is kind of a dead giveaway. And when we look at the source code for what I have written, I honestly don't know if I probably have commented it. But you'll see an actual example of comments and what is appropriate comment wise. I know you guys have probably been told way varying things in terms of how to comment, what's appropriate, and what you should comment. I'll show you how I comment for actual use for stuff, not how to turn in programs. But when you turn in something, what I expect in terms of comments are things that are not obvious should be commented. And I understand what may be obvious to one person isn't obvious to somebody else, but we've got to have a kind of common sense level of what to comment and what to not. As far as your question on how you handle the situation where if you take code from online and put it into your program, anytime you do that, you run the risk of getting flagged as I didn't write this. So I don't need you to preemptively prepare a document that explains every line of code. But if I look at your program, or the TA is grading your program, and they see some stuff that doesn't look right in terms of I see clearly your coding style, and I see clearly this code that does not look like yours. That's going to raise a red flag and might say, hey, I see this section of code in your program. Can you explain what this is to me? That might be what happens.
Okay, and we can just let the person know that we still copied it off the internet or something like that, right?
Yeah, it's pretty easy to tell. We've been looking at code long enough to very easily tell code that's online and code that's yours. So again, as long as you understand what every line of code does that you're copying into your program, you'll be fine. Okay, and commenting it is a good way to do that.
Okay.
Okay, other questions?
There's no worry on like academic integrity or like getting in trouble with that as long as we understand the code and stuff.
That's correct. And again, this is my policy.
Right. Okay.
Yes. Yes, and I don't mind you looking online for help. I view that as what you should do. Like when you get stuck, and you're going to get stuck, like what are you going to do if you graduate and you get a job as a developer and you get stuck? Your boss isn't going to want an email saying, hey, I'm stuck with this coding problem. Can you help me? That's not what they want. They're going to want you to solve the problem. And so you need to develop the skills on how to get through roadblocks as a coder. And that's what I do. I Google it. I have to research the problem. I've got to figure out how to do this. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to teach you.
I always my boyfriend is currently in IT and he has a job and everything, and he always tells me it's like it's not as much as what you know right now. It's a lot of it is just like learning how to find the information that you
Yeah.
need. Like he told me himself that he's coded a couple of applications just based on without knowing, like he doesn't know, he actually like barely knows how to code. He just looks up online how to do this. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. My undergrad degree is not in computer science. It's in education. And so I taught myself to code using, well, back when I was younger, books is all we had. And so maybe that's because I didn't come from a traditional computer science background, that I view things more this way, but being able to find the information is a really important skill. So that's why I'm good with you guys doing this. Okay, so we got a little bit of time left. Let's dive into the way this is set up. Now, some of this is Unity specific, and some of it is not. And so I'm going to try to give you, my goal for today is to give you guys kind of an overview of how the project is set up in terms of how to set up your scripting. Because you guys are going to be creating in this course applications that may or may not be, excuse me, somebody was yawning and I saw them, it made me yawn. May or may not be larger than the ones you've created in the past. And so how you set up your code structure and the relationship between your classes is going to be important. Okay, so first one we're going to take a look at is this GUI manager class. And let me start up Visual Studio. Let me pull this over. Okay, now this is, let me make the code bigger for you. Can you guys see this? Is this a good size?
Yes.
Okay. Cool. All right, so let's take a look at what this is. Now, full disclosure, I knew the scope of this project before I started. I did not expect anyone besides me ever to see this code. And so I probably did some things in here that you were taught not to do, and I would advise not to do, but we'll see how this works. Sorry, I was dying. I'm okay now. So let's take a look at the script. This GUI manager is responsible for managing all of the separate windows. Okay, and so we looked at the program a little bit ago and saw all of the separate windows. There's the calendar, there's the menu that you add meals, there's a menu where you add side items and all that sort of stuff. This particular setup uses what is called the singleton design pattern. Okay, and so singleton design pattern. Is this a show of hands, or can you raise your hand in this? Is there a raise hand button? What is happening? Okay, yeah. So show of hands. I think you could do it with your Zoom screen. Can I poll people? Oh, I can. No polls. How hard is it to create a poll? That's way too much work. I'm not doing that. First time seeing C#. Say something in chat, yell something. Okay. First time. Only like 6 of you?
First time seeing it.
Okay. Say it in chat. We'll do it that way. Say it in chat. That way I can kind of get a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So like half of you guys, first time seeing C#. Okay. Let's take a look at it. Oh, can I do a reactions thumbs down? I was probably too excited about that. Reactions. Bam. Sorry. I got a little too excited about that. So let's take a look at this. Code structure. At the top, you have using. In Java, I believe it's import. And so what this does is this allows us to import existing packages, import existing code. In Java, you use the word input instead of using, but it's the same thing. This system.collections is a C# thing. In Visual Studio, if it shows up gray, that means you're not actually using it, so we can delete this. Okay. By default, all Unity scripts will have this, the Unity engine and event systems. That's not something that you need. Generally speaking, anything that says Unity is specific to Unity, and you don't need to worry about it. Class structure. Okay, so in Java, it looks the same thing. Use the word public class. These are keywords. So showing up in blue are keywords, followed by the name of the class. So the name of this class is GUI manager. As with Java, your class name needs to match your file name. And so we see here, we have GUI manager. .cs stands for C#, which is the opposite, not the opposite, but the counterpart to that is .java for Java files. Okay. Now, in Java, to show inheritance, you use the keyword extends. That's what this colon is. And so in Java, we would have this. C# doesn't like that because it doesn't know it. We use a colon in C#. This extends mono behavior. Mono behavior is a Unity specific thing. You don't need to worry about that. But if you wanted to inherit from another class, you would put that class here. And in fact, when we go through some examples later in the semester, we'll look at some examples where we're using inheritance. One cool thing about C# is you can inherit from multiple classes. You have multiple inheritance, which you can't do in Java. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, my kids are asking if I need a drink because I'm coughing. Okay. I don't know what's happening. So inheritance. Questions on this so far? This top line for classes. Is this big enough for you guys to see, or do I need to make it bigger?
I'm good. I can see good.
Okay. Now I'm going to skip this line for right now. We'll come back to that in just a second, and let's look at these. What we have here is we have references to other classes. Okay, and this is where we're going to start to get into different I say more complex programming, but you guys are going to need to do this as well. Remember, the purpose of this GUI manager script is to have like an overarching control over all of the different windows. This is a good way to set it up. So in your program, if you are going to do a GUI based application, having a single script that has control over all of the menus is important, because then you can interact with that one manager script to control which window shows, control which window is visible, all that sort of stuff. This is generally a good practice setup for how it works. Okay, and so what I have here is, if you look at this, there is a separate script, a separate class that manages each individual window. Okay, and so we have a main menu, which would be, move this out of the way. This is the main menu. The main menu is the one that has it's the first menu that pops up. It's got all of the navigation to the other sub menus. That is the main menu. Okay. You have the meal menu, which is where you add new meals. You have the side item menu, which is where you add new side items. You have the meal calendar, which is the menu that has all of the separate days in a calendar in the meal. And then there's a separate error window, which I don't think we saw the error window. I guess if you do something that you're not allowed to do, it pops up. Okay, so, and we'll look at each of these scripts in turn, but each of these is responsible for managing that window. Generally, that's how I suggest setting it up. So if your application has separate windows, having a separate script for each of those makes sense. If you were going to go text-based, you probably don't need that. But I would encourage all of you to do a GUI setup. Again, you don't have to, but I would encourage all of you to do it. You're good. You want to take over teaching for me?
Sure, I'll take over teaching.
There you go. Thank you. That's my oldest son. He said he'd take over teaching.
Give him a TA position.
I should. He's taking programming. He's taking a Python course right now. What? No, he's still not old enough to beat me in anything yet. Well, I take them. He can beat me in chess. He's really good. All right, where were we? How much time do we have? Like 15 minutes. Okay. So structure wise for your program, again, what I kind of want you to see if I can draw on the screen here. This is what you should be thinking. Annotate. Draw. All right. So can you guys see this? Okay. That's like the best oval you've ever seen. Right. What
You could
we
draw
have
Kirby
here.
easily with that.
What's that? You trash talking? So what we have here, the idea is we have a manager script. So this is our GUI manager. We have GUI manager up here, and then we have like the main menu manager. And then we have meal menu, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but this is the idea here. You have a single access point for, we have a single access point, which is GUI manager. Okay. And the GUI manager has a reference, which is what we see here, to all of the individual menus. Okay. This is a good way to set it up. Now, the alternative to this is that your program would have to keep track of all of these separate ones individually. Okay, and that's not a good way to do that. And what I'm talking about here is a design pattern. How we set this up, this is a design pattern. Specifically, what we're going to be using is the singleton design pattern. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to set that up today. And the purpose of using this design pattern is to give us ease of access to all of the menus as we go through our code. And so what the singleton design pattern does is it will force a single instance, hence singleton, it will force a single instance of a class to be created and persist throughout the entirety of the program. Okay. This is kind of, so let's think back all the way to your 12-13 class when you learned object-oriented programming. What you learn is you have a class, and the class is like a blueprint. And from the blueprint, you can create a bunch of instances of that class. And each of those instances keeps track of its own data, which is called encapsulation. And you can create as many instances as you want. Everybody good with that? I just summarized your 12-13 class in 8 seconds. We're good? Sometimes I don't feel like you appreciate my humor. Okay, so that's the basis of object-oriented programming. There's obviously a lot more to it, but that's the basis. What the singleton design pattern does is it says we have a class. In this case, it's GUI manager. And we are going to create a single instance of that class. We are calling that instance. I'm a coder, I'm not creative. Okay, instance. And then what happens is, if we ever try to create a new one, that will get blocked. Okay. And so we are forcing a single instance to exist, and no other instance can be created. Now, when the purpose in doing that is then you can always use, sorry, let me go back to green. You can always use this instance all throughout the program because you know that's the only one that's going to exist. Okay. And we'll talk about how that works and why it's important in just a bit. Okay, so let me clear this. Okay, so big picture, we understand the GUI manager is the entire manager. It's the controller for all of the sub windows, and we are using the singleton design pattern for that. Now let's take a look at how this works. Okay, so first of all, we have public references to all of these separate scripts. Okay. You were probably told not to use public. I did just because it's easier. Private would probably be better, but I use public. Not a big deal. Let's look at specifically the code for this design pattern and how it actually works. Okay, so we have public, and you'll notice here I've got static. When you are using a singleton, it must be public. You need a public static reference to it. Okay, that's really important. And we'll talk about why in just a second. Now, awake is a unity only function. Awake gets called once right when the script gets loaded. Okay, so this is like in Java, the main method automatically gets called when you run the program. Just like this, awake automatically gets called right when you run the program. Same thing with start. These two do the same exact thing, awake and start. What's the difference between them? Awake runs first and then start runs. That's all. So for all intents and purposes, you can think of this as like the main method. So if we're in Java, we would say public static void main string, lowercase string. This is what you guys are used to seeing over and over again in Java. Okay, this is the same thing. All you need to know is this runs once when the program starts. Same thing for this. Okay, this runs once when the program starts, runs after awake. This runs before start. Do it like this. I have, hold on, runs after. I have the world's loudest keyboard. You can probably hear me typing. Can you?
No.
You can't hear me typing?
Not really.
Nope.
Then I must.
No.
All I do hear you like drink your coffee though.
I'll get really close to the microphone. Yeah, it does have blue keys. Hold on. Let me show you. This will probably make you sick. This is it. It's really loud.
I don't like that color.
You can change it. It's one of those LED keyboards. I've got it set to blue,
Oh,
but that's not it. Hold on. I messed up my camera. Is that an ergonomic design? No, it's just the straight. I could never type on the split keyboards. They always felt funny. Don't hurt your keyboard. Okay, so let's take a look at this. When the program starts, we set instance equal to this. Okay, now this is a reference to itself. Okay, and so what we are doing is this is where we are creating that single instance. Remember when I draw the graphic and I said we are forcing a single instance to exist? That's what we are doing. We are setting instance to this. Now, why static? Do you guys remember what static means? You were taught static in your 1213 class as part of object-oriented design. Who can give me a non-Google definition for what static is? That's a constant. Amir, constants don't change, not static. I know static in real terms means it doesn't change. But,
Doesn't static mean you don't need to have an object to run it? Like you can just run it straight up?
That's correct. So Ethan, that's also a good definition. It's a class variable instead of an instance variable. Static means you don't need an object to interact with it. So if we go back to that drawing that we had, okay, so we've got GUI manager. I'm not gonna write it, GUI manager. And this is the class. So we have the class up here. And then down here, we have a single instance. Normally, the definition of encapsulation means when we create an instance, the instance holds on to all of its information. Okay, so if we were creating a box, we had a box class, and the information that contained inside the box class was the width and the height of the box. Okay, length, width, and height. And then each instance had its own length, width, and height. Those variables would belong to the instance of the class, meaning each individual object that we create from the class holds on to its own data. That's the definition of encapsulation, and that's the heart of object-oriented programming. Those variables, again, belong to the instance. Each separate instance holds on to its own, and instances don't care or know about the other instance values. Okay? Static essentially breaks that. Instead of the variables being contained in the instance, they are held at the class level. Okay, so what that means is if we have a variable that is static, that value will be the same among all instances of the class. So if we have another instance of the box class, if we have a variable labeled static, it would be shared or the same in both instances of the class. It breaks the idea of encapsulation. Okay, questions on that?
So basically the static is mainly affecting the methods in a way, right?
Kind of. It will affect the methods. I want you guys to understand the idea of static first, in that the variable is managed at the class level, not at the specific instance level. Let me read what Zachary put in chat. So in this program and design patterns, you're forcing only one instance, so the main meal, side items, calorie information you put isn't erased each time you're in the program. Not quite. What we are doing here is we are forcing a single instance, and we haven't gotten to why yet. Okay, this doesn't have anything to do with saving and loading or keeping data persistent between runs of the program. All we are doing is talking about why or how this works. Okay, we haven't gotten into the why yet, which we're kind of out of time, so we'll get into this next time. But I want you guys to begin with this this concept. So let's stop here. I'm going to give you some informal homework, and we'll pick up with this on next Tuesday. So here's what I want you guys to do. First, if you are new to C#, let me clear this one. If you are new to C#, I want you guys to browse through this stuff. Okay, under topic 1, just browse through them, get familiar with it, run a sample application in Visual Studio, just to get familiar with it. Second informal homework, I want you to do a little bit of research on static. Okay, make sure that you understand it, because next class we are going to get into more of the singleton design pattern and talk about how this is used. And having a good understanding of static is going to be important for knowing how to set this up and also why we set this up. Okay, does that make sense? Cool. Okay. Well, let's stop there. Again, do your informal homework. You should also be, just want to look at the syllabus real quick. Also be going through, you have your first quiz, which is not until January 20th. We may move this. Your project proposal is due at the end of the month, so you do need to be thinking about that. Check this out. We'll probably push this back a little bit, because I want to cover this stuff before we get to the SDL. See, okay. Amir, you can just take it early. Okay, that's all I got. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. I will post this video. This should get automatically posted. So if you want to rewatch some stuff, you can definitely do that. Just check it out under the Zoom section. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you guys next class.
Professor?
Yep.
Just one quick question. So when it comes to the singleton design pattern, can that like apply like also to other coding languages
Yes.
aside from C sharp?
Yep. It's not language specific.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Could you repeat the last thing you said for homework? You said
Research
last-
static.
static. Okay.
Yeah, make sure you understand what static means. And it's the same in all programming languages. Well, I won't say that because I don't know all. It's the same in Java and C sharp. That's specifically where I want you to look.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Professor,
Yes, sir.
I didn't see if this was on the canvas, but do you have office hours or something like that, or do we just email you if we want to talk to you?
Email me for right now. I'm still in the process of setting up when they're going to be. I want to make sure I'm letting the TA set theirs first, and I want to make sure that it's a good balance, that there's not overlap, and we're available as spread out as possible, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So just email me for now.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to end the class. I'll see you guys.